السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على إمام الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، أما بعد. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا ما علمتنا وزدنا علما، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. This week we begin Surah Al-Mutaffifin, and I don't think we'll finish this week, but in all likelihood we're not going to have a gathering next week, because next week will be Arafah. It'll be the night that precedes Eid, and families will will want to eat. Most people will be fasting. Please remember to fast on the day of Arafah, next Thursday. It's the reward of the previous year's sins forgiven and the forthcoming year's sins forgiven, which doesn't give us license to do whatever we want to do for a year, but still, it's a great reward. So most people after Maghrib, after praying their remaining sunan and nawafil, are probably going to go home and eat, and then prepare for Eid the next day. So we're not going to have a gathering next week. We'll do an extra khutbah on Friday. We'll do an Eid khutbah and a Jummah khutbah. That way, everyone gets their fix, inshallah. Surah Mutaffifin. Now, Surah Mutaffifin, as is the habit, I always ask someone from the young members of our audience if anyone wants to recite the surah for today. Do I have a volunteer? If not, I'm just going to get started right away. No? Abbas, you want to? Yeah? Okay.
Oh, sure.
There we go. You're good to go.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويل للمطففين الذين إذا اكتالوا على الناس يستوفون وإذا كالوهم أو وزنوهم يخسرون ألا يظن أولئك أنهم مبعوثون ليوم عظيم يوم يقوم الناس لرب العالمين كلا إن كتاب الفجار لفي سجين وما أدراك ما سجين كتاب مرقوم ويل يومئذ للمكذبين الذين يكذبون بيوم الدين وما يكذب به إلا كل معتد أثيم إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين كلا بل ران على قلوبهم ما كانوا يكسبون كلا إنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون ثم إنهم لصالو الجحيم ثم يقال هذا الذي كنتم به تكذبون كلا إن كتاب الأبرار لفي عليين وما أدراك ما عليون كتاب مرقوم يشهده المقربون إن الأبرار لفي نعيم يسقون من رحيق المختوم ختامه مسك وفي ذلك فليتنافس المتنافسون ومزاجه من تسنيم عينا يشرب بها المقربون إن الذين أجرموا كانوا من الذين آمنوا يضحكون وإذا مروا بهم يتغامزون وإذا انقلبوا إلى أهلهم انقلبوا فكهين وإذا رأوهم قالوا إن هؤلاء لضالون وما أرسلوا عليهم حافظين فاليوم الذين آمنوا من الكفار يضحكون على الأرائك ينظرون هل ثوب الكفار ما كانوا يفعلون.
You didn't introduce yourself. Your name, what you're doing.
My name is Abbas, and I do hifz at Majd Inam.
جزاك الله خير. تكبير. All right. Bismillah. Surah Al-Mutaffifin is a Makki surah. It's a Makki surah and it has 36 ayat. But being a Makki surah, part of its revelation actually comes in Madinatul Munawwara. And there are surah like this. From the long ones, like what we see in Surah Al-Baqarah, and from the short ones as well. And this being a shorter surah in comparison to something like Ali Imran, An-Nisa, etc., you would think all of the revelations, the verses were revealed in one area, but they weren't. Part of it was actually revealed in Madinatul Munawwara as well. And you can sort of see the difference in where the verses are revealed based upon the theme covered. Quran is very thematic. Sometimes the themes will be superimposed on one another because there's multiple concepts. Someone once asked me, actually many people ask me for my students, in Tafsir class they'll ask, why was Quran revealed in one way, but it's preserved a different way? Meaning its order of revelation are certain surah, but its order of recitation is completely different. And that's because the order of revelation had to deal with the circumstances of the time. In those circumstances, the Quran responded or informed or educated about those circumstances. But then in recitation, Allah had Jibreel alayhi salam come to the Prophet ﷺ and rearrange the surah in the verses so they all would fit a certain thematic approach that would support one another to the final message. And as we go into this today, it'll make a little more sense. Allah begins with the statement, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. Actually, I always try to keep the translation from an actual translation of Quran in front of me. So I will quote from Mufti Taqi Sahib when the phone turns on. It takes a little while for my phone to turn on. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. Destroyed, cursed, or woe to the mutaffifin. So who are the mutaffifin? The mutaffifin are going to be described in the next few verses. So rather than my saying woe to the cheaters, as is often described in Quran, what Allah Ta'ala does is He says mutaffifin alladhina. He has the ism mawsul, and then the sila is going to be the relative pronoun, and then its description will come afterwards. So cursed are the mutaffifin. Who are the mutaffifin? Alladhina idha iktalu ala an-nas yastawfun. Those people when those individuals whom iktalu ala an-nas yastawfun. That when people are measuring against them, when people are, maybe I'm buying something from you, and now I'm buying maybe grain from you, and now that we have to have a measure, how much will the grain cost? Now we have pounds, kilograms, etc. But then the weight would be based upon a scale. You would have a weight on the scale, and then you would have, let's say it'd be a sa'a. Now the sa'a weight would be here, and then now you would fill in a bag, grain, or whatever wheat, that would eventually yastawfun, equal it out. So إِذَا كَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ, when they're purchasing from people, they would make sure that it's exactly correct. I don't want to be cheated, so I'm going to make sure you're doing it exactly correct. وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ, but when the people who were being discussed over here, are now measuring for others, أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ, or weighing for others, يُخْسِرُونَ, they will cheat them. How will they cheat them? Well, some of the narrations mention what would happen is that they would make the grain wet. So then when you're like, okay, I want this much grain, and then you scoop it into the bucket, part of it's wet, so it's going to be heavier. But by the time you come home and it dries, now it doesn't weigh the same amount. So you sort of trick that person into taking less than they should have. So there was methods by which they would do so. So for their own gain, they'd make sure everything's exact. But for others, they would make sure that the others took a loss and they took the gain in the process. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu mentions, لما قدم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم المدينة كانوا من أخبث الناس كيلا. that they were when he came to Medina to Munawwara, he found like they were the most despicable people when it came to this type of idea. In the marketplace, they would cheat one another. Now what's interesting, the Prophet ﷺ, when he arrives in Medina to Munawwara, he establishes 2 immediate institutions. Who knows those 2 institutions? One obviously is the what? That sounds weird. One is the what? The masjid. What's the other one? The marketplace. There was already a marketplace, but that marketplace had so much cheating and so much interest involved and so much wrongdoing that he actually established a separate marketplace so people would not be cheated in the process. Now, why do that? Why not just establish the masjid and move on? Because we know our deen is holistic. It's not just about worship and the rights of Allah. It's not just about interactions and right of mankind. We do both, and both have a very heavy presence in the scale on the Day of Judgment. And if a person is cheating people in the day and they're coming to Allah to pray, eventually they'll cheat Allah. And that's going to actually come in these verses. If people don't have fear of Allah, then they're going to eventually what? Harm or cheat people. These are directly connected. You'll rarely find someone who's so good to people but evil towards Allah. And you'll rarely find people who are really, really sincerely good to Allah and willing to cheat people, because they fear Allah in the people. And the effects of their worship to Allah will show on the people, meaning how they interact with them. So the Prophet ﷺ, he went there and he saw how they were doing and how they were horrible in their interaction financially. فَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى وَيْلُ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. Then Allah revealed وَيْلُ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ فَأَحْسَنُوا الْكَيْلَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ. And after that, they became good in their measurements. In another narration, we see that وَقَالَ الصُّدِّيقُ قَدِمَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. When the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina to Munawwara, وَبِهَا رَجُلٌ يُقَالَ لَهُ أَبُو جُهَيْنَةَ. Abu Juhayna was a person and others with him, and what would they do? They would try to wrong one another so they get the better end of the deal. They get the better end of the bargain. And then Allah Ta'ala revealed these verses to show how despicable that act is. And for us today, this is also very much applicable. How is this applicable? Look, first of all, I want to separate one thing when it comes to these verses. This does not speak about market value. Market value and what you sell something for is up to you. Let's say you own a business, you sell water bottles. You can sell this water bottle for $1,000. If you go to the marketplace and sell it for $1,000, and I can't go to the meeting and say, so-and-so is cheating me. Why? Because this bottle is definitely not worth $1,000. What will the Amir tell me? Don't buy it from him or her, go buy it from someone else. You're allowed to charge what you want. That's okay. Now, you're not allowed to co-conspire to raise the prices, etc., with all the other individuals, but you're allowed to charge. Now, you come to my place, and it's for $1,000, and then you go to someone else's place, and you see what? It's only for $5. You're not going to buy from me. That's my own loss. This is not what these verses are speaking about. These verses are speaking about cheating in transaction, not charging what you think is appropriate. You might say, well, I'm charging $1,000 for this. Why? Not because the craftsmanship or the quality of the bottle. It's because so-and-so owned it before, and they're a mega superstar. And I know that if I put this on eBay, it's going to sell for a lot. In fact, you should be happy I'm only selling it for $1,000. I have a relative value on it. You don't have to buy it if you don't want to, like jerseys. You can buy a jersey of an athlete for $50, but if that athlete wore it in a game, or like in a finals game, etc., that jersey might be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's a relative price that you put on it. If I want to pay for it, then that's up to me. If I don't, that's up to me. But that's okay. This is talking about cheating in the marketplace. To purposefully make the weight look, because Umar, he standardized a lot of these practices. And the Prophet did as well, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to make sure the weights were all even, etc. So maybe we do certain things, like, for example, Umar radiallahu anhu, on one occasion, he went, and this was the great grandmother of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, rahmatullahi alayh. That what happens with her, one day, Umar radiallahu anhu, his famous night walks, he's journeying through Medina to Munawwara, and as he's journeying through Medina to Munawwara, he hears some voices,
And he used to go check on people at night to make sure everyone's okay. And he hears a mother raise her voice asking her daughter, did you put water in the milk? Why? Because when you go in this is Tafsir over here. You go in the marketplace, milk looks like milk. And you can't say, can I taste the milk? I guess you could, but you don't want to ruin the milk either. So what's there is that, here's the milk. Now, if someone waters it down, it doesn't look the same. It doesn't taste the same when you go home. But there it looks all the same. So she asked her daughter, did you water down the milk? And the daughter said, no, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar bin Khattab has prohibited this. She said, yes, but Umar is in here. Not knowing Umar bin Khattab is outside. She said, but Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar is in here. She said, yes, but the Lord of Umar is watching. And then there's the whole story about that daughter being married off to one of the sons of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, and then from them to the child becomes Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahmatullahi alayhi. That's a longer story for a different time. But what do we see? People would cheat these ways. That's what's being discussed over here. That's what's being discussed over here. Those types of practices. So if you have a business and you want to sell your parathas for $1.50 more than someone else, you can. Maybe you have that secret recipe that everyone else wants, and that's why it costs $1.50 more per paratha, for whatever the case may be. That's your choice. There's no market value that the Amir establishes. Okay. Now, wailul mutaffifin. Wail in the Arabic language, what does it refer to? I mentioned this before when we speak about in a few different surah. One, it means like destruction, halak. One, it means curse. One, it refers to a specific area in hell that's like its own well within the hellfire, that the rest of the hellfire is afraid of itself. So, wailul lil mutaffifin. May the mutaffif receive wail. May that person receive this place in hell that's so problematic that even the other places of hell are scared of it. And over here in Mufti Taqi Sahib's translation, it's mentioned, woe to the defrauders. And that's an excellent translation. It's not my translation, but it's his translation. The people who defraud people in the market. الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ. Those individuals or to the curtailers, that when they measure something from people, they take in full. وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ. When they measure away something to give someone else, وَزَنُوهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ. They make sure that the person loses out. They get less than what's due. Now over here, another thing should be known. When a person makes sure someone else loses out, this was not the way of our pious predecessors. In fact, when we look at, from the Salaf, like Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, it's written within his biography, that he was a successful merchant. And on one occasion, we see that he began to pack up he had garments he would sell early for the day. His clothing or his cloth, he packed it up early for the day. Someone asked him, why are you leaving so early? There's still time remaining for people to come to the market. He said, the sun is clouded. The sun is covered by clouds. And I fear if people now begin to look at my cloth, they will not be able to see it as clearly, and they won't be able to see the defect and subsequently offer me more than it's actually worth, and I won't see it either. So I'd rather just shut down business for the day. These are people of piety of the past. They were very careful not to defraud one another. Why? Because if you look at the next verse, أَلَا يَظُنُّ إِلَيْكَ أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ. Such a powerful question. أَلَا يَظُنُّ أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ. These individuals who are giving others loss and taking benefit and making sure no one, that they themselves, their best interests are fulfilled, don't they know? أَلَا يَظُنُّونَ. Aren't they aware? أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ. That they will be raised on the day of judgment. لِيَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ. On that grand day, يَوْمَ يَقُومُ النَّاسُ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. On the day that Allah Ta'ala, that the people will stand in front of the Lord of all the worlds. See, this is the essence of taqwa. It's not, I don't want to get caught cheating in the marketplace, then people will forever label my stall as being the stall that cheated people and I'll lose business. That's not why people did it correctly. People did it correctly because they always ask themselves this question, أَلَا يَظُنُّ إِلَيْكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ. Don't we think that we're going to be raised in the day of judgment? That one day we're all going to go into the graves, some will turn to dust, all will be reassembled, all will be re-raised, and then when we're re-raised on that day, all of the actions will be shown. So are we so willing to take $1 more or $10 more in this world to lose out in the hereafter? Now someone here might be saying, Alhamdulillah, I don't have a business, so I don't have to worry about this. But there's other manifestations of this as well. For example, some people, they sell things on eBay, so they tell their friends, bid on this for me. You don't buy, just bid. I want you to raise the price. That's haram. To bid without intent of buying, according to hadith, is absolutely haram. Now, a person is raising the price for the sake of the end bidder to offer more money. They may get more value they may get more money in the actual dollar amount, but the barakah will be gone. And the barakah is what infuses the actual dollar, cent, quarter, whatever the case may be, with the value. You know, sometimes a person has so much barakah in their wealth that they'll go and spend a little in the market, but because of coupons or all these random sales that we're not aware of, they end up getting so much more than they thought. And other people, sometimes they'll go spend their wealth in the market, like, man, I'm burning through my money like this. That's the barakah in the wealth. And the barakah comes not through gaining more. You know, there's a saying in Urdu, which I wish I memorized it properly, but I don't have it memorized properly. So if anyone knows it, please say it for me. It goes something along the lines that in the past, people used to look for the barakah. Now they look for the kathura. Anyone know how that goes? I remember in madrasa, our teachers would tell us this. And then the rhyming is the kasra, but the tha in Arabic, and the barakah. In the past, man, how'd it go? It was so beautiful in Urdu. I can't say it in Urdu because I don't have memorized, and my Urdu is actually quite poor. But in the past, people would not be looking for the higher dollar amount. They would not be trying to wheel and deal every penny. Why? Because they know if that person's struggling. And I'll give an example of this, and I'm going to move on. You know, if I want to remain wealthy and I let people borrow wealth, I want to make sure they return it to me, right? But did you know that aside from the 7 people who get Allah's shade on the Day of Judgment, there's others mentioned in different hadith? And from those are those individuals who let someone borrow money. And now so someone owes them money. And what do? They see the person struggling to pay back. So they extend their time for the sake of Allah. Or they forgive the debt completely for the sake of Allah. The Prophet ﷺ has mentioned that Allah has promised that those people will be under the shade of Allah's throne on that day when people have no shade but Allah, the shade of Allah's throne. The barakah of it came. Yeah, they may have gotten fewer dollars in this world, but the hereafter they gain Allah's happiness, and in this world. So yukhsirun, we don't want to be those people who try to make others lose out, and we subsequently lose out. And there's other ways to defraud people as well, and I don't need to go into it. When I was younger, when people would sell cars, they would turn the odometers. Now you can't do that anymore, but they used to do that. They used to do that, especially because when it reached 100,000 back then, the one would even come. It would just go 99 and go back to 0. What's up? No, you're okay. Yeah. So those types of things we should be very, very careful of. Now, there's another hadith I want to mention. And this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is actually quite frightening. He mentions 5 things will be replaced by 5 things. He mentions 5 things will be replaced by 5 things. That people will no longer stop fulfilling their oaths and their promises and their vows, except that Allah will let their enemies overcome them. Allah will let their enemies overcome them. And people وَمَا حَكَمُوا بِغَيْرِهِ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا فَشَا فِيهِمُ الْفَقْرُ. That people will, so that's number 1. If we start breaking our oaths, Allah will replace that with what? Us being defeated or overcome by our enemies. Number 2, people will no longer, will not stop. People who cease to stop ruling by the word of Allah, by the rule of Allah, in replacement for something else, except Allah will cause poverty to come over them. Allah will cause poverty to come over them. Number 3, people who allow fawahish, illicit desires, and this refers to another narration, zina in particular, to overcome them, except that when they do it, that they will see a growth of death and like sudden death, like a type of difficult death. Number 4, that people will do tatfif. People will begin to tatfif, they'll try to cheat and defraud in the scales, and when they do this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cause their crops to stop growing, and people will no longer stop paying zakah, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have them, have disaster overcome them. So we don't look for the shortcuts. We don't say, oh, Deen says this, but the Western ruling says, and this happens. You might say, where does it happen? Alimony is a good example. Alimony is not halal Islamically. Now, before anyone gets upset, I understand that a lot of things happen in marriage. So I'm not giving a broad fatwa, I'm giving the ruling. If there's a divorce that's going on, then that's a conversation you have to have with the mufti who's helping you through this, etc. But alimony is not Islamic. It's not. In the marriage, the husband owes his wife regular stipends. So you actually give your wife a stipend from the husband's, so she's able to spend upon herself and give in charity, etc. Like that's there. Then you have to take care of her needs from her clothing, from her food, etc. Now let's say the marriage ends. May Allah protect our marriages. But let's say the marriage ends. Now the wife's like, if I go with the Islamic ruling, I'm not going to get much. But if I go with the Western ruling, I'll get the alimony. That's not Islamic. That's not. Or sometimes what happens is the spouse that's earning less, that spouse subsequently says what? Oh, you know what? I'm not going to try to get a better job because they earn so much more than me, and I'm going to try to keep the kids for extra days, so they have to pay me more child support. Where Islamically, the kids after a certain age, when they're aqil, 7, 10-ish, they go to their father. Now again, I'm not making any fatwa here, your situation may be different, etc. I'm just giving you the general principles of fiqh, but people try to abuse the system for their own financial gain. That's a type of tatfif. So we have to be careful. Now if you're going through a divorce or something like that, I'm not commenting on your situation. Your situation might be that money is actually owed to you, whatever the case may be, and that's for you to decide. Speak to a scholar, have a righteous lawyer involved. Don't get these cutthroat sharks involved. You get them involved, like, oh, I totally milked him. Day of judgment, he or she is going to milk you twice over. And it's not going to be worth it. It's not going to be worth it. Now, there's another thing we should note over here. And this is why Allah asks, أَلَا يَظُنُّ إِلَيْكَ أَنَّ مَبْعُوثُونَ? Don't you think, oh husband, that you're going to be held in front of Allah on the Day of Judgment and be raised up? Don't you think, wife, that this is going to happen? Don't you think, shop owner, etc.? But there's another statement over here. And this statement is even more frightening than the previous statements. On one occasion, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu saw a person praying. And we saw the person praying. The person was praying quickly. So what did Umar say? You have done tatfif. You have curtailed, you've defrauded. Some of the scholars say Mutaffifin refers to those individuals who cut their prayers short and they expect a full reward from Allah. Now, how is this the case when we're talking about financial transactions? Because all of us had a financial transaction. Inna Allah ashtara min al-mu'minin anfusahum wa amwalahum bi anna lahum al-jannah. Allah has purchased. There's a transaction that took place. Inna Allah ashtara min al-mu'minin. Allah purchased. He sold to us paradise and He purchased from us what? Because in the past it wasn't dollars for, now we have wealth, but it was more commodity exchange. So here's gold, I'm going to exchange it for a certain amount of whatever you have. Or I have a camel, I'm going to exchange the camel to you for the sake of 10 saddles, or whatever the case may be. We would make these type of barter exchanges. So Allah gave us paradise. This is the financial transaction. What did He take in return? What's the asset of ours that He's taking? Anfusahum, our lives. Amwalahum, our wealth. If our wealth is counterfeit, if it's not filled with barakah, if it wasn't used for good, or our lives are counterfeit, we're not obeying Allah, we're abusing our bodies, we're abusing our souls, we're abusing the people around us, that is not going to be exchanged for paradise. That's not going to be exchanged for payment. That can't happen. It would be, it's like if you came to me and you said, here, Saad, I want to buy your car. Here's $10,000. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Here you go. I give you the car, and then and I give you the keys. Then you go, and then you go start the car. It's not starting. And you look, and you pop the hood, and there's no engine in there. I'm like, oh, you didn't say you buy the engine, just the car. And if you ask any child to draw a car, they draw the body, the wheels, etc. They don't look at the engine. So I'm not giving the engine until you pay me more. That would be a type of defrauding. And by the way, in fiqh, that wouldn't be valid, because in fiqh, engine's included part of the car. It's like selling the camel without like the heart. It wouldn't make sense. But anyway, the idea is what? We can't defraud Allah. We should be careful that we expect so much in return from Allah in this transaction that we made, but we're not holding up our end of the deal. And that's frightening. Because what will happen, we expect something on the Day of Judgment, the opposite will occur. أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ now لِيَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ. What's this يوم عظيم? يوم يقوم الناس لرب العالمين. In a narration from Bayhaqi rahmatullahi alayh, from Qatada radiallahu anhu, when regarding the statement يوم يقوم الناس لرب العالمين, the day, because Allah doesn't just stop the day when we resurrected. He then tells us in front of whom we're going to stand. Because one thing is the resurrection. Now remember how I told you thematically the Quran was rearranged so that we can learn from it? The first verses are a Madani set of verses. But then we go into the Makki set of verses. Why does Allah connect it? Because the first verses were speaking about what happens in the way people transact. But the latter part speaking about to what the Makkans needed to hear. Remember, you're going to be raised in the Day of Judgment. What's the connection? If you don't fear the Day of Judgment, you're not going to fear harming people. If we don't fear standing from Allah, we're not going to fear wronging His creation. But if we fear hell and desire heaven and want a proper judgment, then we're going to be sure that we took care of everything with people and our Lord as well. I'm going to wrap up with this. The narration I was mentioning, that Qatada radiallahu anhu said, بلغني أن كعبا radiallahu anhu said, كان يقومون مقدار 300 عام. That day, people will stand for 300 years in front of Allah. 300 years in front of Allah. Ukhrawi years. Not dunyawi years. The years the hereafter are much longer. That's how it's and we know within Quran, in Surah Alif Lam Mim Sajda, Allah mentions what? Alfa sana, 1,000 years. In Surah Al-Ma'arij, Allah Ta'ala mentions what? 50 alfa sana, 50,000 years. In a narration of the Prophet ﷺ, we see what? Rak'atayn khafifatain, 2 quick rak'ah. How do you do tatbiq? How do you reconcile this? For the people who really messed up, the Day of Judgment's going to feel like 50,000 years. The people who messed up, sort of, it'll feel like 1,000 years. The people who did everything the way they should in front of Allah, and this world, it'll just feel like a quick prayer. They'll just walk through. And it's interesting, some of the first people who go to the gates of Jannah, when they get there, the angels of Jannah ask, what are you doing here? The judgment's not over. They said, we had nothing to be judged for. We're the people of Ribat. We would guard the frontiers. We didn't have much to our name at all. So we just protected for the sake of Allah, worship for the sake of Allah. We didn't take much from the world. It's like the people who, when you go to Hajj or Umrah, if you've ever been to Hajj, or if you go overseas, and then some people, they take a suitcase, and they put a suitcase inside the suitcase, and they go, and now they have their clothes, and they buy all the extra stuff, and then they come back, and they go through customs, and you're waiting there. And those other people who either out of choice or they couldn't afford buying a lot, what do? They just come back with a simple bag, they check it, they go, you can get out of here. That's how it is in the Day of Judgment. The people carry the luggage, the baggage of dunya in their hearts, of wrongdoing, of sin. They're going to be stuck on that judgment. The people who didn't matter, then they go through very quickly. There's a few more things to add over here, but I'm not going to go any further because we've hit our 35-minute mark, and I want to stay true to our timing. Inshallah, we're going to continue in 2 weeks. Next week is what? Next week is going to be the Arafah, and for that, I'm not going to expect people to come. And then the week after, inshallah, we will continue. This may take 3 weeks. I'll try to do it within 2 weeks, like I've done most of the surah, but this may take 3 weeks. وآخر دعوان الحمد لله رب العالمين.